This is a little poem I thought of. I don't normally do poems, it's not really my thing. This poem is about autism, and it's also about how people doesn't understand what is autism and why it affects us a certain way. Hint. Autism is a journey that not a lot of us expect. It's a very unusual, unique, and almost exciting journey you can ever be on. Normal people doesn't share that experience. Normal people only cares about big and adult things. Like money, for instance. Hint again. And how long am I going to be in this job? With autism, you still have that experience, like worried about money. But autism experiences much, much more than that. Autism is having a collection, like a collection of DVDs, which I'm starting to do, or collection of teddy friends, which I'm also doing, or autism is also where your imagination runs for longer. For example, I have a wild imagination ever since I was a kid, and I still hold to this imagination throughout my life. My name is Kieran, and I was diagnosed with autism in 2002. My experience of autism, I must say, I didn't know I had it. I was different. I was unique. I was weird. I had to explain two very bad words, but one word I can't say is the R word, because it's offensive. I was different to everyone else. I didn't have many friends. Not a lot of autistic people will have many friends. They will look at you as if you're an alien from outer space, like they've just come into first contact with an alien race called autism. And people nowadays still do not understand autism. People nowadays doesn't even just understand autism. Most of them don't even know what autism is. Most people doesn't even know what other disabilities are, like dwarfism, learning difficulties, and of course, Down syndrome. Autism, I have to say, is like the top ones I've just mentioned, except dwarfism, of course. It's like learning difficulties and Down syndrome in a roundabout way, but autism is much larger than those two. Autism is an adventure of a lifetime that not a single person knows what that adventure could be. Autism is a very big diagnosis towards men than women. Autistic people believe in equality and diversity. We even believe we should be ourselves. There are positives and negatives to autism. Let me run through the negatives first. Get the bad ones out of the way. The negatives about autism, it runs in different ways depending what level of autism what level of being autistic you are. So whatever level you're on, you're gonna have a difficulty. Some autistic people have high sensitive hearing, like train sounds or knocking on the table really loud, or shouting at people, or even really loud sirens, etc. Some autistic people have high sensitive vision, which means like this kind of light that's on me right now, it's straining my eyes. So things like bright lights, like headlights, mostly sunlight, etc., will strain our eyes. Most autistic people have high sensitivity to smell. It could be pollen, it could be fur, it could be just anything. Autism has quite a big number of negatives. And when you experience the negatives, the more it gets a little bit positive in the end. Sounds confusing, you say? Well, high sensitive hearing or high sensitive smell or high sensitive touch, as an example, or high sensitive of sight, etc., can only mean one thing, that you're autistic. Doesn't mean if you have a high sensitivity to this, that, and the other is a really bad thing. It just means you're very sensitive to certain things. The most things that autistic people will be really, really sensitive to will be in really small gaps. For example, crowds. That is a big thing. Crowds is not really a big number. Well, is a very big number. It is a very big number towards people with autism, because people with autism needs to be in a room with at least 7, 12, or maybe at least 24 people. Any more than that, like for example, if you're on a train and most people have to stand and there's barely any room to sit, obviously there's this involved, claustrophobic, which most autistic people will experience over a period of time. It doesn't mean that you're scared of traveling. It doesn't mean you're scared of being on a train with lots of people. It just means you're a bit claustrophobic, and that means really sensitive of being on a train with loads of people. You need to be on a train with less people, which is very, very rare. Now on to the positive side of autism. You have a bigger imagination, depending on the person. You can be more creative. You can do anything. Being an autistic person, you could even pretend that toys are alive, which is me, by the way. You could pretend that when you're drawing something, that comes to life. Basically, wild imaginations like that some people might be put off with, but that's why people doesn't understand autism, because it is new, and it still is. Autism is the autistic number, well, the number of people who are diagnosed with autism has been increasing from 1 to 2 people to 1 and 26 people at least, and still increasing to this very day, because people are being diagnosed with autism, and this started during during the early 2000s. I should know. Autism is neither good or bad. It has its up and down moments. So basically, it's like a normal person, but not a normal person. Autism has to be the greatest experience that anyone should experience, unless if you're like certain people who puts their heads up in the cloud and believes that God cured their autism. Autism is a very long journey, and that journey is planned out. And sometimes this is where the negatives come in. Sometimes when it's not planned out, if the Lego doesn't look right, by the way, changes happen. And that's a big experience for people with autism. Autistic people doesn't like change that much, especially when it comes unexpectedly. When it happens in the unexpected world, autistic people get really claustrophobic, stressed, confused, and worried of what this change is. It could be a death of a family member. It could be moving from one college to the next. It could be moving independently. It could be other family members are moving. It could be anything. It could be a pet in your life that you never ever had. Changes like that could change. But with autistic people, they try and plan it all out. But plans turn into plan B. And we don't like plan B all that well. Autistic people are always known by another name called spectrum. That is the real name of autistic people. Autism spectrum. And that is a big name. People with autism has really good values, and we like to say that we were born with it, not diagnosed with it. And if anyone mentions there is a cure for autism, all I can say is, fuck that shit, I'm out. Because you can't cure autism. God can't cure autism. You have autism. Live with it. Even if you don't like it sometimes. Go ahead, just say, I don't like autism all that well, or being autistic. But it's going to be in your life for the rest of your days. That is my poem. I think I did it wrong, but that's my point of view. Good night.